Paper was like gold in medieval times.
Oh, not tobacco, sugar.
That everything we thought we knew about the world might turn out to be completely wrong.
This is the Valley, a vanished world from a forgotten time. Here on the Welsh borders, a farm is being run by 5 hand-picked experts as it would have been nearly 400 years ago. Using only resources available in the year 1620, they are labouring for a full calendar year, turning the clock back to rediscover a way of life from an age gone by.
It's February now, it's our 6th month on the farm and we're halfway through the agricultural year. It's a very austere time 400 years ago. It was the start of Lent, when you were only allowed to eat fish and dairy produce and not flesh. We've got a lot of work to get through this month as usual. We've got to get the sheep overhauled so they're in good condition before lambing next month, but there is one job that's a lot more urgent than all the rest. The privy has developed a severe list in the last gale, and if we're not careful, one dark night it's going to be down round our ears.
Rebuilding the privy is this month's challenge for Alex and Fons.
First and foremost, it's a bit of a structural hazard. You can see it's leaning here. It hasn't been braced properly when it was first built, so the wind's just blown it over slightly and we've had to prop it up on this side. Another concern is this seat. It's I think, Fonzie, you've had a few problems.
It's a given that this plank is going to break, and I don't want to be the one on it when it breaks.
And the final concern is that it's becoming a bit of a biological hazard. The original pit that was dug, I don't think it was dug deep enough, and we find that we're filling it up really quickly. So another task to dig a deeper hole. OK, Stuart. Well,
yeah, if we get that round the other side and shove with it.
All right, do you want to take it out? We think it's going to fall.
Careful, careful.
I think it should be all right.
It may be, but
it's going a bit. No, OK,
back off. Right, OK. Let's get round the other side and push it down.
So what we're going to do, we're just going to give it a big...
Well, if you go on the back corner, on the upright...
On the back one, yeah?
I'll see if I can get this up the inside. If you take that corner, Fons, and we'll see how much strength it's got left in it.
OK, when are we going to go? On 4?
Can't count that far, let's go for 3.
1, 2, 3.
Well, that's really in it.
Right, now we can start taking it apart.
Yep, strip it down.
With the cold of February upon the valley, Chloe is paying special attention to the farm's 2 young ponies. She's hoping to train them up as working farm horses.
We're losing all the grass out in the big field, and there's a lot of stock out there. So to feed them on their own out there would be a bit silly, because they wouldn't really get a look into any hay we put out, because all the other stock would just get straight to it. So bring them into the yard, throw a bit on the floor and see what they eat. They're doing really well, actually, considering about 2 months ago these 2 were pretty much wild. Obviously, we've made a bit of a difference here. If I can actually get my skirt back. This one, certainly, she kicked me 2 months ago really hard. And I think now we're a bit of a changed pony. I'm not quite sure why she's so keen on my skirt.
One of the key agricultural landmarks is looming, spring sowing. So Stuart and his son Alistair need to get the pea seed ready for planting.
We harvested the peas on the vine that we were going to use for seed earlier this year. And now we've got time, sit in a bit of sunshine, good light, and gently pod our way through.
The waste stalks and pods, called the pea horn, quickly become a snack for the horses.
This is the sort of job that any member of the household might have done, although quite often one can get the children to get the bulk of it sorted. It gives you a bit of a rest though, and at this time of year that means you can start to get a bit chilled. So in a few minutes I think we're going to have to go off and do something a bit more active.
Stuart, can you give me a hand with the hay?
Yep. Oh.
just lose this stuff into the yard, I think.
How much do you need?
Armful. About the same as what's on the floor would be good.
Up above the stables, the levels of hay in the loft are slowly being depleted by winter feeding. Out on the privy, it's time for Alex and Fons to remove the old rotten floorboards and really start getting their hands dirty.
It's unfortunate for Fonzie, he lost at hazard the other night, which is a dice game we play. As a consequence, he's got the onerous task of digging out the cesspit.
It was fixed.
The dice were loaded in my favour.
400 years ago, human feces was a vital fertilizer. In cities, specialist contractors called night soilmen emptied privies and took the waste out of town for processing.
Have you got your tool? I made this yesterday.
Beautiful.
A special present to Fonzie, his scoop. So there you go, mate.
This job can only be described as grim, but it's a job that had to be done, and shit was actually very valuable. It was used for compost mixed with wood ash. You can't put it straight on the top of the field, you've got to dig it down, and you can't plant root vegetables in it in the first year. Only vegetables that grow above ground, such as kale or cabbage, but the second year, it's brilliant for root vegetables.
How's your scoop working?
It's heavy.
Yeah?
But not as heavy as the spade. But it's working well. It's working very well.
It wasn't just human feces that had value. Like any 17th century farmer's wife, Ruth has to take extra care of another waste product.
Almost nothing went to waste in a farm like this. Even our urine has a value and a use. Of course, at night, getting to the privy out here is almost impossible. It's pitch black, you'd be stumbling all over the place. So we use piss pots up in the bedroom, just like they would have done. And then in the morning, I have to come out here and empty it. Being useful, I keep it separate and store it in a jar by the privy. How's it going, Fons?
We're getting close. We're almost there.
Oh yeah, it looks a bit better, doesn't it? Urine on a farm is really mostly used for making ammonia bleach for laundry. Really, you only just have to leave it for about 3 weeks and stale urine becomes ammonia. It's a really useful chemical. And of course, in towns, it was actively collected on a sort of industrial scale. So there were people whose job it was to go round and collect piss pots that were stood outside of pubs, which hopefully everybody contributed to. And they would take them away and then start using them in a whole range of industrial processes, including the making of saltpetre, which of course is one of the most important ingredients for gunpowder, a really burgeoning industry at the time. Waste management 400 years ago was a sort of fairly large business, really, extending all over the place. There was money in muck.
Temperatures have been dropping in the valley, and for the very first time in the team's year on the farm, snow is falling. Despite the turn in the weather, Stuart, Ruth and Chloe need to bring the sheep in for essential maintenance.
Sheep really evolved to live up on high mountains in dry areas. So firstly, because there's no rocks to wear away their toenails, they tend to get ingrowing toenails. So we've got to trim those every now and again. The other thing that we've got a big problem with at the moment is that we've just had a few warm days. There's a lot of fresh grass coming through. And as a result of that, they've developed severe diarrhea and they've got really claggy backsides. So what we've got to do is cut all this dangling crud off the back end of them and then look for sores and treat that appropriately if there's a problem there.
Getting a bit better at this sheep herding. Of course, in the period, although they had sheepdogs, period sheepdogs were only used for driving the sheep. And they hadn't yet developed a system of sort of training the dogs to do that going round thing. So many shepherds carried a sort of a scoop on the end of the stick so they could like pick up a little bit of something and then fling it over the far side of the herd, and that would turn them.
I do quite like the sheep actually. They're quite easy to herd compared to the pigs and the cows, so I'm quite fond of them in that respect. And they've all got their individual characters. We've got Monty, he's the only ram, And he likes to think he's boss, but really, like, as you get in every household, he's not. It's the women that are in charge. And we've got these sort of 8-year-old ewes that they really know their stuff and they're boss.
There we go. Well done.
A new day and the snow has settled, turning the valley into a winter wonderland. But the serious business of looking after the livestock has to go on, particularly Duchess, who is 8 months pregnant. With the sheep in from the fields, Stuart, Ruth and Chloe can give them a proper going over.
Gently does it.
Gonna need a hand.
Yeah, just stop and bolting that way.
Right.
Gotcha. Right. Oh, that was easier than I expected. Oh, she's a bit soggy with this snow. Come on, girlie. Oh,
come on, in you come.
Nothing much wrong with this one. Right, these are Cotswolds. They go right back to Roman times, and they're kept because of this really long fur that they've got. But they're not particularly good mountain sheep, so you've got to give them a lot of attention. Right, girl.
Mind you, the pictures you see of these sheep.
Come here.
All right.
On your back. That's
it. Here we go.
Right.
Let's get you cleaned up.
There's a Cotswold. It's got this very distinctive forelock and a very long staple, very long thread to the wool. And you can find statues up on the Cotswolds from Roman times which show exactly that shape of fur on the head.
They do, but they usually look a bit smaller when you see pictures, isn't it? When you see period
bred
pictures.
Over the years, yes.
In the period, the sheep, the same breed, but nonetheless was actually physically smaller, which would have made this sort of handling a lot easier than these great, huge lumps.
They're now known as Cotswold lions because of the size and look of them.
Yeah, I know, dear, I know.
You'll get about a £10 fleece off a Cotswold. A modern sort of Welsh mountain sheep, you might be looking at about £3. So a lot of wool for your money on these.
The shears are actually, as long as they're start sharp, they're really easy to do. The ones Ruth's using are actually they're razor sharp, actually. I only cut myself sharpening them earlier.
Just a bit there, that's your tail, isn't it? I'm going to check her feet as well while I'm here, just to make sure she hasn't got any cuts or problems there. That one's all right. Chloe, have you got that Stockholm tar? It's the thing most frequently recommended in period sources. So this will act just as like an antiseptic and sort of seal up any cuts. There we go. Come on then, you.
We can do anything nasty. Oh gosh, she's wobbly already.
There we are. Just give her a minute.
With these large breeds, if you have them on their backs for too long, all the internal organs have flopped over the wrong way and they crush down and it starts to cause them severe problems inside. So the last thing that I need to do with her, now that we've done her feet and dagged her tail, I'm going to do standing up. Right. I've only got little legs. Come here, you rat bag.
How much is this worth, Stuart?
Now, what I'm going to do is have a look at your gums, because one of the diagnostics that you get in the period books is if the gums are white, we've got a problem, but those are beautifully pink. See that? How are those teeth doing? They're in fairly good shape for you of your age. Right.
Okay.
There you go.
Good girl.
Okay, who's next?
The cesspit has been dug out and enlarged. Now Fons and Alex can get on with the privy superstructure.
The problem, obviously, with the snow, is that it's rained on my timbers. And what I'd done is I'd prefabbed the structure for the privy. And in fact, I think this one should be on that side. It should.
To help keep the wall plates in position, they'll also need to be mortared in.
Now, this is a piece of ash, so it's actually really quite light, this one.
This way around?
Yeah. What I've done is just cut really simple mortars and tenon joints. So you've got like a sort of peg which just keys into a hole. And because they're quite broad and it's quite deep, that's managing actually just to stand up on its own for now. But then, of course, there's mortise and tenon joints up there as well. You in? You there?
Yeah.
Give it a tug. Stonehenge.
Woodhenge.
Gotcha. There we go. These purebred Cotswold sheep, there's only about 1,000 of them left in existence. It's very close to the sort of sheep medieval times being the core of our woolen industry. There are even more primitive sheep, like the sowing. Oh. You're not going anywhere, girl. OK, have a look at her feet while I hold her. But things like the sowing have only survived out on primitive islands because nobody bothered with them. So this is the cultivated sheep that we would have bothered farming, not these scrawny little deer-like things. Don't you look at me like that, girl. Is somebody going to deal with her backside? Or am I sitting here all day in the snow? Come on, old girl. Oh, it's no problem. It's just a great fluffy ball. We've known each other a long time, haven't we, girl? All the ones we've cleared up so far, there's plenty of flesh on there. They're getting plenty to eat at the moment. It's all the hay we've been feeding them out of the lofts. So they're in fairly good shape for ship shape. Whew.
Now this.
The temperature in the valley has dropped to about -4. Working without modern waterproofs, the team have to keep busy outside just to keep warm.
There we go.
That's good.
Right, only the walls and the roof to do now. Oh, apart from the toilet seat, of course.
Certainly very grand for a toilet.
Excellent. Right, I think it's time to pack
Have a
up
beer.
and head for the fire in the hall.
To help thaw out our team, period music specialist Trevor James has come along with an assortment of 17th century instruments for them to try out, like this sitan.
Because you're supposed to use a feather, really.
A feather?
Yes.
I've used a plectrum before.
One of the plectrums would be a little feather.
That's clearly a feather.
A feather plectrum.
Let's give it a try.
The English bagpipe was very popular in this period. It was popular right the way through the medieval period.
I mean, Henry VIII, for example, had an actual bagpipe band at court. I think there was about 40 of them. But he was the last monarch to have bagpipes at court, and then gradually they sort of dropped down the social scales.
I mean, on a farm like this, in this particular period, the bagpipes would certainly have been played. And little things like the pipe and tabor even, the one-man band of the period. And it's played with the tabor pipe, surprisingly, or to give it its other name, the three-hole pipe. So if I cover all the holes and blow at 4 different breath pressures, we'll actually end up with 4 different notes. So... The thing about the music of the period is people tend to think of it as a very courtly sort of music, very dainty, very steppy, if you like. But in fact, in an environment like this, it would be quite raucous and very lively and lots of drinking and having a damn good time. And talking of rustic, I've got one more little gem for you, Chloe.
Me?
Yes.
No, that's a walking stick. That's not an instrument.
Yes, that's the snorkel.
All right. No, I can play that.
I think you can, yes. This is a crumhorn. The curvature doesn't have any effect upon the sound that the instrument produces at all, but it's really like the saxophone. It projects the sound forward, but it has a beautifully raucous sound.
Sounds like a kazoo. It sounds like a kazoo.
Well, yes, it has. Try that one.
Okay.
That's it.
Pardon me.
Oh, the cows will
It's
love
all
you
this
in
beer.
the morning.
I'm squeaking.
Yes, you are. And you're doing it very well.
Oh, go on,
Yeah.
go for it, Fons.
Somebody else just... Oh, I feel such a fool.
Well, it's all right, Fonzie. If you can't do that, I've got these for you.
Marvellous.
Can't quite need those.
Quick, kick him.
Oh, quick,
He squeaks, he
There's
squeaks.
a snake coming out the jug.
After several days, the February snow is finally melting in the valley. Time for Fons and Alex to install the toilet seat. Rather than period authenticity, here they've made something with comfort in mind.
OK, Fons, on with the box, the splash guard. It's time for the business end of things now, putting our toilet structure in.
That sits quite nicely.
Just see how smoothly it sits on some of these floorboards. On with the lid. There we go. That's central.
A little bit to you at the right, at the back. Yeah, that's good.
And a lift, there we are. A nice clean drop. Some 5-6 feet. In fact, look, Fons, we've got some water building up there. And we've got our own self-flushing toilet. Well, I suppose we should check it out to see if it's sturdy enough. Oh, there we go. It's certainly comfy enough. It's got a bit of a backrest thing going here as well. That's quite nice.
You look very regal.
Regal, looking out over the garden. I'm still not convinced about the size of this hole though, Fons. It tends to pinch somewhat. You ought to give it a go, mate.
In all, it's taken 10 days to rebuild the valley's privy. Now they just need to finish the roof. In the 1600s, February would have been a very lean time. Little grows in the garden and most farm animals are pregnant, so fresh meat is off the menu. All of which makes it highly appropriate that this marks the beginning of Lent, 40 days of culinary restraint.
The Church's very own Lenten period of abstinence is exactly that point in the year when an ordinary farming family hasn't got any choice anyway. But fish, in all its preserved ways, are available right through the year. These ones are smoked. You can have them salted or pickled, obviously, as well. And it's sea fish. It's not freshwater fish for ordinary common people. Because in order to have freshwater fish, you've got to have the rights to the fishing in the streams and rivers and lakes. And frankly, that was wealthy people only. Queen Elizabeth was determined to increase the number of fishermen because she needed sailors. She needed trained sailors to defend the country. Initially, well, obviously against the Armada and other such threats. And she had no money to pay anybody. So she came up with this marvellous wheeze of having extra fish days in the week, so that instead of just being Friday, it was also supposed to be Wednesday and Saturday. So there'd be a huge market for fish, which would mean we'd have more fishermen, and therefore, automatically, all these trained sailors.
On the menu for tonight is a fish salad.
I'm just easing the skin off.
Do we not eat the skin of that?
Look how tough it is. Look. Well, you can eat it,
Do they
but
use that for anything?
there's some talk, or at least they say they found some archaeologically, of condoms made out of fish skin. I'm not fancying trying it, no way. Ooh.
Nice.
The privy is now ready for its finishing touches, tidying up the thatch and smearing the last of the daub onto the 17th century style wattle walls.
You'd think with all the thatching that I'd done on the cowshed, and the bracken thatching I've done on the hovel, that I'd have got a bit better at this, but I've actually found with this building, because it's so small, it's been really, really fiddly. I'm just going along with the mallet here. It's just a stubble thatch again, so it doesn't have to look pretty, just got to be functional, really.
Indoors, the winter warmer dish is apple pudding. 400 years ago, boil-in-the-bag puds using a pudding cloth were a new culinary creation.
Things like spotted dick and Christmas pudding are all modern derivations of this technique that was first sort of made popular and discovered, really, at the very, very beginning of the 17th century. There's a marvellous account by a French traveller visiting Britain. One of the things he said was, to come in pudding time was to come in the best of times. Just pop all that in there. Are you? I'm going to dress this salad with samphire, which is a salt marsh plant. And inland, of course, you'd have to have it pickled in order to keep it. It goes rather nice with the sort of smokedness of the fish. And I'm going to put the salad right in the centre in a sort of big mountain or hill. Just pop these last few little bits on just to make it look nice. And there we go. One red herring salad. I'm going to... Are you getting on all right with those puddings?
I'm nearly finished.
Fantastic.
Just tying them up.
Tying them up. You're going to just...
The puddings need about 2 hours of cooking in a cauldron of boiling water.
That's pretty much finished. It's as good as I'll get it.
When I first started on the farm, about 6 months ago, I didn't think I'd be digging out old privies and doing so much construction work. But it's been fun, and I think we've done really well.
It's taken a lot of time, this has, but it's been a really rewarding job. It's a showpiece of all our skills, and yeah, it's been really enjoyable. Dead chuffed with this project. Dead chuffed.
A few fish are left over after the salad, so Ruth is frying them in a preheated pan. Before dinner is served, Stuart makes a dash outside into a cold, dark February night, weaving his way across the vegetable garden to christen the valley's new toilet facilities.
Well, at least I haven't got any splinters yet. The seat seems to have been smoothed down well, but I hope he's done a good job on the floorboards. There was a case 400 years ago where a 9-year-old went off to the privy and the floorboards had rotted and he was straight in there, drowned before they got him out. 400 years ago, they didn't have purpose-made soft toilet paper to use, but neither were they having to resort to cabbage leaves. The publishers were churning out pulp fiction. There was joke books and romantic tales, real Mills and Boon stuff. And as one wag put it, it was but bum fodder fit to wipe the nation's arse therewith.
Meanwhile, the fish supper is ready to eat.
I like samphire.
Thanks so much. You want to try a bit, do you?
Yeah, can I just do a little bit of yours? Literally just a little meaty bit.
Yeah.
The Valley team are now exactly halfway through their year on the farm. They've weathered the worst of the winter. But spring will bring new challenges and new workloads.